to episode 2 of the On the Diamond podcast. My name is Jake, and today we are going to talk about why I was not a fan of the Mets offseason. Now, I want to start by saying I love the players that they got. I think the Mets did a good job at acquiring talent this offseason, um, but I think they did it in a way that was more closely resembled a losing franchise and a bad team rather than a well run organization. Which surprises me because David Stearns is now at the helm. All of you may know, ex Brewers GM came over once they had $1 billion payroll with Steve Cohen. So here we are. So let's get started with the roster. Let's get started with the overall roster. As of right now, you have their opening day lineup as Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Bo Bichette, Jorge Polanco, Marcus Semien, Beatty, Alvarez, Robert, and then Benj. I don't think it's going to be Benj. I think Benj will start the year in AAA. I can actually see that being Brett Beatty out in left field and them finding another bat to take care of DH, whether that's a Mark Vientos or Ronnie Mauricio. I really think they're going to try to get those two guys at bats to try to either trade them in the offseason. I'm sorry, at the trade deadline, or if they become good players for them, those are players that they can keep. Now, I really want to get this started by I want to go back to the beginning of the offseason. David Stearns comes on the mic and talks about defense. So that's going to be their focus of the offseason. And early on, well, one, I agreed, but two, early on, they showed that, right? They got rid of Brandon Nimmo, who was a fine defender. He had no arm in left field, but they got rid of him for a guy like Marcus Semien. Now, Marcus Semien's a clear downgrade with the bat. Clear downgrade. He's like 40th percentile or lower in expected batting average, expected slugging, average exit velo, barrel percentage, hard hit percentage, sweet spot percentage, and bat speed. So he's not going to be a great offensive player anymore. He's just getting a little older at 35. He has a good glove. I even understood getting rid of Pete in a way. If you really, really were buying into the defense, I can see if you wanted to go trade for a guy like Christian Walker, who was proposally out there, or take a guy like Brett Beatty, who's a good defender at third, and maybe throw him at first base, or even Mark Vientos, maybe get him better. Because let's just call a spade a spade. Pete was horrendous. He was horrendous at first base. Couldn't move to his right. Couldn't He saw a ball being hit. He had to run over there, even though he should not have at all. Um, my problem is when you start signing guys like Bo Bichette, and I love Bo Bichette. I'm a Yankee fan, and I would absolutely love Bo Bichette on my roster for what he provides, and I would have loved him for the Mets as a second baseman. But here's where the problems start to persist. You signed Jorge Polanco to play first base. You signed Bo Bichette to play third base for $47 million a year. I know it's $42 million, but it's a $5 million opt out. So if he plays like Bo Bichette does, he's going to opt out. So he gets an extra $5 million on top of the 42. So it goes to $47 million. And then this move puts them over that next tax threshold, which so essentially it makes this move 110% taxed. So you're basically paying about $105 million for 1 year of Bo Bichette. But we'll get to that in a second. And then with this move, you're either having Brett Beatty play DH or you're playing him playing left field. I never like to put a young player like that at DH. When you want to keep him engaged by keeping him in the field, and especially a position where he graded out positively defensively last year, right? He was +1 at third base. And I know he played a couple innings of left in the minors, but for another, I don't want Brett Beatty to have another position change, right? He just got comfortable playing third last year. It took him about a year and a half. I don't know if that can hinder his bat at all, knowing that he has to spend so much extra time in left field. And I get it; these are major league guys, right? You can stick them all over the infield, all over the diamond with enough work, and they should be able to be capable. Jason Dominguez. Um, but I think signing Bo Bichette for that amount of money, I think was a clear panic move, right? I think it was a clear panic move when they didn't get Tucker. I think all offseason that was their plan was to get Tucker. Basically, they told his agent, "Hey, whatever offer that you get, whether you think is the best offer, come to us and we're going to make it better. And I think they truthfully did. I think they put out a wonderful offer for him. Was I think 4 years, 220. Um, but then here come the almighty Dodgers with the sorry, 4 for 260, 4 for 240. I apologize, which just blew him out of the water. And I think they transferred over to Bo Bichette. Bo can't play third base. And this is where we tie back to David Stearns talking about defense. I get it. Some shortstops get a little better, and we can project him for marginally better in 2026 at third base. The problem is there's not that much space to go up, right? Bo Stones for toes, Bichette was a negative 13 OAA last year. And although, again, shortstop is a very rangy position, he doesn't have a strong arm. He's not very lateral, which you need quickness at third base. You don't necessarily need the range, but he's not quick, agile, fast, speedy. I mean, any word you can use to describe moving other than slow, Bo Bichette is not that. He can't field. He has no arm. He had 4 throwing errors last year. I just don't know how they thought this was a good idea for about $100 million to sign Bo to play third base and then potentially move Brett Baty off of that natural position. Jorge Polanco is going to be the shortest first baseman ever at 5'7", 5'8". I mean, that might be a little generous for Jorge Polanco. And then Marcus Semien, he's a good defender. Don't get me wrong, he's a great defender actually. But he's going to be 36-year-old season next year. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to go down. He could still be 90th percentile in OAA as he was last year. But he's getting a little older. Like I could see what they were trying to do. They're acquiring talent, right? The Mets were devoid of talent last year, and that is truthfully what they needed. But also, they had a horrible defense. I mean, if you take the combination of their whole primary starting nine last year, they had negative 21 OAA. The entire roster, that includes even great defenders like Francisco Lindor and Tyrone Taylor in the outfield. And if you take them this year, what it was last year, granted, Bo Bichette's going to be, you hope a little bit better. Maybe Jorge Polanco gets a little worse, but we're not going to project that. We're just going to do based on those numbers from last year. And you're looking at negative 19 OAA. So when you take a look at these guys and who they acquired, their offense wasn't the problem last year. I believe they had a top 5 to 7 offense last year in the big leagues. They didn't have a great time hitting. I mean, that's why you miss the playoffs. You don't miss the playoffs, when you're great. But you got 2 outs better in OAA, and that's with Luis Robert having a stunning number, and you can't hit it to Luis Robert every play. And that is with Brett Baty in left field. I did throw Brett Baty in left field, where he was positive at third base last year. So this number could change either up or down, but proof is I don't think they got much better defensively as a whole. And they inherited a lot of question marks on offense, right? Francisco Alvarez had an injury last year, and he was inconsistent. Granted, when he did come back, he was much better offensively in the second half of the season. Marcus Semien, his OPS started in the sixes. Luis Robert, his OPS started in the sixes. Jorge Polanco had a resurgence last year, and he has bad knees. He's going to be your first baseman with bad knees. I'm a Yankees fan. I saw Mark Teixeira for the last couple of years of his career. You do not want first baseman on bad knees. Bo Bichette doesn't have any knees, ligaments, or tendons in his, and he's stones for toes. Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor are the two staple, consistent offensive guys. So don't get me wrong, this has the potential to be the best offense in the league, even if Marcus Semien regresses back to his 2023-2024 self, even 80%, right? He's going to be a 750 OPS guy. Brett Baty, let's see if he can continue even while playing left field or DH. And Luis Robert has obviously hit 38 home runs in a season. So, and the bat speed's still there, which isn't everything, but he's shown that in the past. He has put it together for about a year and a half worth of games. So I like the moves. I like the moves overall. I just think doing all of them in the culmination of one offseason, I think overall it doesn't improve your roster because you're taking so many risks. And if one injury happens, then you're having Tyrone Taylor play every day. Ronnie Mauricio and Mark Vientos playing every day, which is going to happen. I never predict injuries, but I think you kind of can with this roster. If you told me when we went a full year without Luis Robert, Francisco Alvarez, Marcus Simeon, Bo Bichette, and Jorge Polanco getting injured, I would say that that's a miracle, is in the nicest way possible. I think we have a greater likelihood of the White Sox winning the World Series next year than them those five players making it through the entire season not healthy at all. I didn't really mention Carson Bench. I mentioned him. I touched on him slightly. I would actually love if he started the year in the majors. I think he's a really, really great player. I have a lot of faith in him. I bought some of his baseball cards. Um, but I know he struggled a little bit last year in AAA towards the end of the season when he did get promoted. Crushed AA, crushed single A. I have all the faith in the world in him. I think you should really give him that big league run early on in the season instead of when somebody gets hurt mid-season, because then once you're pushing for that pennant or pushing for a late season division push with the Phillies, Braves, Marlins, you may be there. Um, I want him to have some major league at bats already. And we know how much the beginning of the season is a huge test run for all these guys. So I just am so not excited for the Mets. Well, I'm excited to watch the Mets in 2026. I really am nervous. I think that's a better word, is I'm nervous for the Mets. You know, as a Yankee fan, I do root for the Mets. The Mets are another New York team. I love seeing New York teams do well, but I can't say I'm overall excited. And that's before we get to the bullpen. Oh my Lord. I I've seen some bad bullpens. I've seen the 2025 Nationals, the 2024 White Sox, the 2018 Pirates. These are some of the worst bullpens ever. And this bullpen last year might have been the worst I've ever seen. Blowing big games. I remember couple games specifically last year against the Braves, had an 8-3 lead. They blew it. They blew against the Marlins later in the season last year. They blew one of the Phillies, I believe, in August. They were blowing games left and right. They did have some injuries, right? AJ Minter was hurt. Brooks Raley was hurt. Um, Huascar Brazoban was getting optioned a couple times throughout the year, even though he should have stayed on the roster. He was a great piece. But they completely revamped the bullpen this year. 100% completely revamped it. I actually like a lot of their moves. Devin Williams, they say he can't pitch in New York. I think that's false. I don't think that's really a thing. If that is a problem, he did it last year, so you can say he kind of came over that. My problem is just the pitches overall were less effective, right? His fastball was less effective, had a little less movement. His movement profile was not as good on it last year. Changeup was relatively the same, but when you can only count on one pitch to be consistent and effective for you, I don't want to say it's a recipe for disaster, but it's much harder to get outs in the big leagues when you only have one pitch. As great as it is, this is not Jake McGee 2012 throwing 90% fastballs. And you're not Emmanuel Clase. You're not a degenerate gambler, or you don't throw 102 mile an hour cutters. So it's really hard to do. Luke Weaver, this was my concern. His fastball lost a little bit of life last year. He changed up his pitch mix a lot. He used a lot less cutter, a little more changeup. And because I probably would as well, right? His changeup was really good last year. He was just having a huge problem with location. He was really, really good before his injury, so maybe he just needs an off season to get right with the injury. But I'm not as confident in Luke Weaver as I am in Devin Williams performing, just because it's because of the movement profile of the pitches. Fastball's pretty straight. He releases it from a higher arm slot than most. It's above average. So he does get a little bit more ride on it, which is what the Yankees pitching lab did. I think the Mets are going to try to bring back his cutter. I think they're going to alter the shape a little bit. I think they're going to make it slightly softer with a little bit more run. I'm sorry, with a little bit more cut. And I think they're really going to rely on that changeup a lot. They're going to ask him to throw it in the zone more, and overall just kind of worry about those three pitches. I think he's gonna ditch that pitch he added late last year. AJ Minter, Brooks Raley, both good. Both were hurt last year. I think they're going to be completely fine. I have no issues with them in the bullpen. AJ Minter is getting a little old and coming off again Tommy John surgery, so I don't expect him to be. I don't want to say not ready for the start of the season, but not ready to be great at the start of the season. Luis Garcia, this is a depth guy, right? This is he's in a he might be on the Mets till June, and then he'll probably get DFA'd. He's a hard thrower, 97 with the sinker, slider, changeup combination or splitter combination. I apologize. He'll be a good arm for a couple months until he starts to run out his steam, and he'll be DFA'd, picked up by the White Sox in July, probably traded again to early guess the Phillies. Huascar Brazoban, another old reliever. Every reliever on this team is over 30. They have Tobias Myers in here. I don't know why. I think he's going to be in the back end of the rotation. I think Senga's going to be gone. I think they're going to pay all the money just for somebody to get to take on Kodai Senga, if I'm being completely honest with you. And then another guy that's kind of huge is to come back mid-year. That's a big question mark. Is Tyler McGill? Does he go back into the rotation? Does he get lengthened in the bullpen? Right? Do they start there? I think they do. I think they're going to do what the Yankees did with Luis Heel, either put him in 2 3 inning spurts, or go right to the bullpen. I have a hard time seeing him going right into the rotation right away, especially with these guys in the bullpen. Tobias Myers is the only guy that can really go more than 1 inning. Luke Weaver, every time he went more than that last year, he did start to struggle. So I'd probably keep him in that one inning, late inning role. Some other guys that could be options. Reed Garrett blew out his arm. Daniel Nunez blew out his arm. Daniel Nunez will probably be back May to June. Reed Garrett, I'm a little weary with him. This is his, I think, second or third injury. So I wish him the best of luck. It seems like every time the Mets try to push him, he gets hurt. And they have some guys in the minor leagues, right? They have, I believe his name is Kevin Ross, a couple other hard throwers down the minors. The bullpen, you piece that together midseason. That's not a big concern for me, although they got better. I don't know if they got a lot better than what they had last year because they had Edwin Diaz, and this bullpen was still bad. And they lost Edwin Diaz and replaced him with a worse version of that in Devin Williams. So, and then we'll be quick on the rotation because I actually really like the rotation. Um, Freddie Peralta, fastball Freddie, Nolan McLean looks about 40, David Peterson, the left-handed Clay Holmes, the right-handed David Peterson, Sean Manaea, and then Kodai Senga, who I think will end up being gone. So I wouldn't even count him here. Good. You don't want any of these pitchers going over 5 innings, and that's why it's super important. Where I think you should throw Tobias Myers in here. He can give you some length. But oh my lord, I mean, ask any of these pitchers to go above 5 innings. It's going to be tough. The fastball Freddie, he paid 33 starts last year, and he only went 176 innings. That's not even 6 innings per start, I don't think. No, it's not even 6 innings per start. So he really, really starts to, take the foot off once you get that third time through the order. That could have been a Brewers thing, absolutely. I'm willing to hear that out and say that the Mets are willing to push him farther. But if you remember correctly, the Mets also had a streak last year. It was like 20 or 30 games without one of their starters going more than 5 innings. So I'm going to say that probably continues, and then every day you're going to have to throw out Luis Garcia, AJ Minter, Luke Weaver, and Devin Williams, and then ask them to do it again. And then randomly you're going to have Huascar Brazoban closing out games in August because they're using these guys so much. I mean, this is a good rotation. They just don't have the length that I like to have for my rotation. Um, but they did get a great pitcher with Freddie Peralta. I think they gave up a lot to get him. But they should, right? I mean, if you don't re-sign him, it's a fail of a trade. If you re-sign him, it's a great trade. So that's the risk that you need to take, especially when you have as deep as pockets of the Mets. I would extend him right now, without a shadow of a doubt. Um, but when you really take a look at this offseason, you can really kind of see what the Mets were doing, right? They were acquiring talent. They weren't really caring as much about fit as they were just talent. You could see that in the lineup. You could definitely see that in the bullpen, and you can even more see that in the rotation. They just wanted talent. The Mets really believe in their development within, which they should, because they've last couple of years they've had a lot of top 100 prospects. a lot of top 100 prospects that graduated or have been traded to other teams and performed well. So I think that this is good for them, but this does not scream championship winner to me, or really not even close. I think they need another depth guy that they can, kind of like how the Yankees did with Ryan Weathers. They can switch between the bullpen and the rotation and be able to kind of work them in wherever they need, wherever injuries happen, right? But with that being said, like what other moves do they have to do other than that rotation piece? I would still get a left fielder to potentially platoon with Carson Bench, like an Austin Hayes. Um, Carson Bench is a lefty that can't hit lefties, at least in the minor leagues in AAA, with a little bit of upgrading talent. I would give him all the righty at bats early on. Um, but you can, but one of my last closing statements about the Mets offseason, and my last point, right? I'm not even 100% sure the offense got better. We were talking all this talk about the defense and acquiring talent and the pitching and acquiring guys that do things that the Mets like, that don't necessarily have a distinct role, but more so just acquiring good talent. This is where it confused me a little bit because if you're going to go all this of just acquiring talent and not really caring about defense after what you said in the beginning of the offseason, David Stearns, where you really cared about defense, that's where you thought you lost a lot of your games last year, was on the defensive side of the ball. So that's why you got rid of Pete Alonso. Now, I've seen online some people saying that it was just the Wilpon stench, right? They just want to get and get rid of anything associated with the Wilpons. I understand that, but Pete was a great guy. You can clearly tell he's a locker room guy last year, and he really rallied this team together when they lost pretty much all hope in the middle of the season when they were having some of their issues between Jeff McNeil, Francisco Lindor. I think that's a problem in of itself that Carlos Mendoza let it get to that point. I don't think he should be the manager there anymore. I think um, that they should have went after one of those older guys to really get fill our locker room, especially since you're acquiring all this talent. These are all proven guys talent wise. They just some things need to be fixed, but I still don't know why they let Pete Alonso go. You're paying Bo Bichette $100 million a year to be a worse version of Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso could have just played first base, and you could have moved Jorge Polanco to third, which he has played in his major league career. I mean, listen to some of these Pete Alonso numbers. I mean, these are fucking ridiculous. I mean, 96th percentile xWOBA, 87th percentile expected batting average, 90th percentile expected slug, 97th percentile average exit velo, 98th percentile barrel percentage, 96th percentile hard hit percentage, 85th percentile sweet spot percentage, and 91st percentile bat speed. I mean, these are just amazing offensive numbers. Brandon Nimmo even had 88th percentile exit velo, and he was an average fielder. He was -1 OAA. I get it. He didn't have much of an arm, but 115 OPS plus. I mean, this is offense that you're getting rid of. Jeff McNeil was even a positive offensive player last year, and you just got rid of that for more uncertainty. Where these guys were certain. You traded really, really, really good offense for just as good of offense or slightly less with less certainty. I can't see what David Stearns is doing in this offseason. I really can't. I think these were panic moves done by a guy who's really confident in his ability to just lure people to the Mets, and I think that failed, and I think that's going to backfire on them midseason. I do have the Mets as a wild card team this year as currently constructed. I think that's an 86, 87 win team. I just don't see how this team makes it through the season. I mean, we could be in July and the Mets are rolling out a lineup of Lindor, Soto, Bichette, Vientos, Mauricio, Taylor, Alvarez, Robert bench. I mean, you could see all four of these bench players playing by July and being starters. And you could see a rotation that is decimated. Freddie Peralta, he's consistent. He's going to make his starts. Nolan McLean looks to be durable, but David Pearson, Clay Holmes, and Sean Manaea can't get through 130 without breaking three limbs. Kodai Senga he's not going to be on the roster, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. But like, what are you going to rely on Christian Scott? He's come back from injury. Tyler McGill, he's come back from injury. So it's not that I didn't like the fastball Freddie move, but there's just so much uncertainty on this roster. I thought the Mets were going to go for more certainty this offseason. I thought they should have overpaid for Joe Ryan. I thought they should have overpaid for Mackenzie Gore, who just went to the Rangers in a great move for them. There's just so much uncertainty here, and I think that David Stearns overestimated his ability as a general manager. Um, on this team, he probably built a good 86 to 87 win team this year, which is not a problem, but it's a contribution, or it's sorry, it's a raise from last year. But overall, I give the Mets offseason a 6 out of 10. They did collect talent, not in the right places, and not where I was hoping that they needed to do it. So thank you for listening to the On the Diamond podcast, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.